I added them all up, and it's 8 minutes and 19 seconds straight of watching a guy drive up a hill. That's about 7% of the whole movie. And that doesn't count the scenes where he gets out of the car and talks to his bosses, which are basically all identical. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Popcorn Revolver, where three dudes talk about movies that we like and sometimes don't like. My name is Ben, and I am one of your three hosts.
Hi, I'm Mitch. I'm also one of your three hosts.
And hello, my name is Lucas. I am also one of your three hosts.
Oh, yeah, and I'm host with the most this week. I forgot to say that.
Also, we forgot to tell everyone that we rebranded and our name is Popcorn Revolver now.
No, we told them that last episode, right?
Did we? Did we say
We
that?
didn't mention it in the episode, but
Well,
I put
you
out the
made a
announcement.
post.
I did the announcement thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if y'all ain't keeping up, that's on you, not on us.
Yeah, good. Every month, each of us picks a movie based on a theme, and then we talk about it. This month's theme is movies with budgets under $300,000, and today we're going to be discussing Mitch's pick, the 1999 film The Wind Will Carry Us. Mitch, give us the rundown.
Sure. Thank you, Ben. The Wind Will Carry Us was released in 1999. It was directed by Abbas Kiarostami. Kiarostami is amongst the most famous Iranian directors and a pioneer of Iranian New Wave cinema, a style that focused on poetic dialogue and naturalistic, almost documentary-style filmmaking. In the film, Behzad and his team have traveled far to a remote Kurdish village for an unknown reason. The locals believe they are there to do some unknown infrastructure project, referring to Behzad as the engineer. Slowly, their true purpose for their journey is revealed. Behzad constantly inquires after the health of an old woman in the village and is hounded by calls from the outside world as his impatience grows. They are waiting for something to happen in a beautiful place, but life has other plans.
Yeah. I'll be yeah, we'll get into it. So yeah, that's the fucking synopsis. But now, before we crack into it, before we crack this cold one, we got to do our marquees.
Can I go first?
Yeah, of course.
Yay! Okay. The Wind Will Carry Us. Mushy mushy, stay on the line.
There's a lot of hello, hello, hello.
I just need to get to higher ground. Hold on, just stay on the line. Are you on the line? Can you hear me?
Mine's similar. Mine is The Wind Will Carry Us. Watch a guy drive a truck up a hill.
The Wind Will Carry Us, the sweetest film to allude to killing an old woman with a pickaxe.
I mean, there was some murderous intent in there, or like a lot of people pushing that murder.
I did not pick up on that at all. Is that when the guy falls through the hole? It's implied that...
No, it's earlier when he's talking to the guy in the hole. The guy's like, I have a pickaxe you could borrow. And he's like, I don't think that's the right choice. It would it would just take one good hit, though.
Yeah. To solve my problem.
Yeah, okay. So let's fucking get into it. There's a lot to get into.
Some like things I guess I'd like to start off with. I like Kiarostami's films. I think they're not everyone's cup of tea, and the reason I picked it, one, because it's the budget constraint, and two, I was just really curious what y'all would think of it, because I could see it being kind of alienating. So we're gonna start out at the outset of the film. There's a mystery. Behzad and his crew are interlopers in this setting. What were your initial impressions of Behzad?
I read the synopsis for the movie online.
Oh,
Like not. I didn't read the whole plot, just like what it's about, and it says he's there to witness the fucking burial rites, like funeral procession for this old lady. So I knew that going in. To be honest, I don't think I would have been able to tell that was happening if I hadn't read that.
I was lost for a good while because I didn't read the synopsis or, the little tidbit. And at first, they pick up, what's the kid's name?
Farzad. The fucking whitest pronunciation.
Farzad.
Farzad.
Yeah.
Yes. So they pick up Farzad and they're, joking around with him and they're like, oh, we're here to like find treasure. Tell everybody we're here to find treasure. And like, they make it clear that it's like a lie, but at the same time, I was like, is this some La Chimera shit? Like, are these some Tumbarolis gonna go digging around in rural Iran?
I got had lots of La Chimera vibes from this.
Yeah.
Farzad is a little kid who's lives in the village that they go to, by the way. He's a tiny little kid who is always doing exams.
Yeah. But what was your impression of this, like, of Behazad, the man who's taken this crew to the village? Like, what were your thoughts of him as he arrived and kind of trying to figure out what's going on in the film?
Well, he's framed as an observer mostly, so like he tries to take pictures of locals and they tell him not to do that. He relies on the locals for resources like milk. He really wants milk. He really wants milk.
I kind of had this like symbolic, like he is modernization, because he's walking in there with his blue jeans and whatnot, and then everybody else is in like not as modern clothes. But yeah, I don't know. At first I was like, he's kind of a dick with the whole like taking pictures of people and then being like, don't do it. And he's like, okay, let me take one more picture. And then there's a scene with the turtle where he just puts the turtle on its back. And I'm like, how fucking dare you?
That happens later on. And as soon as he did that, I fucking lost all respect. Any little respect I had for the character. Piece of shit.
At the same time.
That's such a fucking horrible thing to do.
It is. It truly is.
Yeah.
At the same time, he is, at least, I mean, throughout the whole movie, but at the beginning, he's the only one out of him and his compadres that is actually going out into the village, or at least that we get to see going out and talking with people and getting to know people.
Well, his compatriots go to they hit up the strawberry fields.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't see it, and that's at the end. But at the beginning, it's like, are they just sleeping this entire time?
They're almost like an extension of him. They're like you never see their faces, and whenever he talks to them, they're usually in like a room somewhere else. There's another character that happens with, the guy who's digging a hole up on the hill. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's like in those situations, I got the impression that we're seeing the main character Behazad talk to extensions of himself.
I might have missed this. Is he actually an engineer or not?
No, he's not.
Okay, I was like, why is an engineer trying to understand this like burial rites ritual? Like, this makes no sense to me.
Nah, it's just a cover. He's a journalist and he's there to document.
That makes more sense.
So one thing I think that's interesting, or some things I'd like to talk about just from a context perspective for those who haven't seen the film or aren't familiar with Kiarostami's work, he is a very quiet director in that he doesn't give a lot of direction, and the setting is, as a character, is like really important for him. I was listening to an interview with him talking about this film. He wanted to make this film 2 years prior, but so he went and scouted locations. And I think what's important in this outset of the film is he wants the viewer to feel like an interloper, the same way Behazad is. Coming into this place, no sense of familiarity, kind of an awkwardness, like he's this very modern Tehran metropolitan man in this rural, indigenous, and Islamic place. So I think he didn't come back to the town, the village, for 2 years because he wanted, when he got there, to shoot it through as fresh of eyes again as possible, which is kind of an interesting detail. I think there's also an interesting contrast between him and being this metropolitan guy and coming to a very poor place. You know, he's got a cell phone, which in 1999, when this takes place and when it was shot, is very new and expensive technology.
It's a flex.
Yeah, he's flexing.
The cell phone is honestly almost more of a significant character than he is. And I'm not even kidding.
I think
I do
that's
get
a
what
bit
you
harsh,
mean.
though. But yeah, continue.
Well, to piggyback off what you're talking about, the opening of the movie is all shot. You follow this car driving through the lands, and the dialogue is all from the car. People asking for directions, trying to figure out where they're going. I mean, it really sets the stage, the visual palette. You're going to see a lot of this fucking car, but then when they get out of the car breaks down at the village, and they get out of the car, and the main character still is not shot in a close-up for a good chunk of time as he wanders into the village. The village itself is taking up most of the frame, and he just kind of wanders through it. Kiarostami, you could tell there's an effort on Kiarostami's part to establish the setting as a character pretty early on.
I think he was very successful at making us feel like an interloper. Like, you know, at the very beginning, Behzad is walking through. He's kind of looking at people in a very observational, like scientific way almost. And then there's a lot of these shots of just people in the village kind of like peeking around corners and staring at him like, who's the new guy in town? Like, who's this engineer?
That does lead into my next question. The film is shot and takes place in a rural Kurdish village in Iran. What do you think is the role of Iran in the film, as well as the setting of this village? Like, as character, as structure, as place, what role did you guys see that serving in the film?
Do you mean like Iran, the state?
Yes.
It definitely seems exploitative. It seems like Behzad is a agent of the state. I know he's an independent journalist, but like he's there to cover a story for the benefit of folks back in Tehran. He's exploiting them. He's a tourist.
I also think like it shows also the beauty of Iran. Like the the village and the scenery is incredibly beautiful, and it's covered in golden hues. And so it is this like weird mix of beauty and exploitation of the indigenous people of the land. You know, he's not telling the villagers why he's there. He's not being upfront about that.
The village seems to be like a pressure vessel, like a temporal pressure vessel for the main character, because the main character has a strict schedule. You know, he has these deadlines that he has to abide by, and all. He has deadlines, and when he gets to the village doesn't work on his time frame. The kid has to go and do exams and can't help him be a guide. People aren't able to get him milk at the times that he wants. The old lady who just wants to fucking die won't fucking die. And so this guy who's like rushing through everything and is very like high strung is forced to slam the brakes and just exist.
I also do think the setting of the village leads to a lot of like wonder. Like it's very dynamic, you know, up and down, side to side. It's very multi-dimensional, and like I loved the first scene where he's trying to go and get signal with his cell phone. Him like running through the streets, through all these corners, getting all the way up the mountain, and realizing he has to go to the other side. It just made you interested in what's around the corner.
Yeah, I think I like that. I like that. I noticed that too, but I don't think I thought about it. It's sort of like a playground.
Yeah.
The reason I bring it up is that I think of the films I've seen of Kiarostami's, this one feels the most, it's self-referential in a way. He sees himself as Behzad coming to this rural place, there to sort of take without giving, because there's something very voyeuristic about the way the film is shot. It often feels like Behzad is just sort of looking as a passive observer at this rural landscape and at these people. I do think it's interesting that he sort of creates a somewhat unlikable protagonist in a film that's really kind of about his own sort of complex relationship with these places that, you know, he's made his art, his career based around. Like a lot of his earlier works are similar, where he went out to Kurdistan and went to villages and was using locals as actors and shooting them for his vision, for him to like almost place himself in that interloper kind of semi-colonialist position, which I think is interesting. Maybe he wouldn't frame it that way. I wouldn't know. He's dead, but you know, I think as
He's
just
dead?
Yeah, he died in 2016. So just like as a piece of art, like viewing the artist in this way, like viewing the director, like his vision for this, creating an unlikable protagonist also makes me think about him as unlikable in certain senses. And listening to him talk about this film, he's kind of a prick. So I felt very like, but I've heard other things about Kiarostami that.
Well, he was accused of sexual assault.
I did not know that.
Oh, I didn't know that
so-
either. Oh God, what's up with freaking directors, dude?
Positions
Yeah.
of power. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was not aware of that.
Yes, that's probably why he's so unlikable. One of the reasons. why he's
Definitely
so
one of the
unlikable.
reasons. Think that that's important though, like to be self-aware about your position within, you know, the socio-economic like tapestry that you find yourself in. Because yeah, like the Kurds are the indigenous people of the land and have been consistently exploited and pushed off by the Iranian people.
And the Syrians and the Turks and the Iraqis.
Yeah.
Really, everyone.
Yeah. So I was going to talk. So something I'd like to talk about is the humor of the film. Like it's listed as a comedy and as a drama. And I think the film is actually quite funny.
Fucking Lucas's face right
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's listed as a comedy.
Yeah. I've seen it listed as a comedy.
I saw oh my God, an unhinged review that said it was a comedy. I was like, oh, that's unhinged. I'm saving that just in case. I guess it's not.
So I think that one of the scenes that jump out to me about the humor, and I think it sort of gets at some of it, is so Behzad he gets these phone calls intermittently, like 3 or 4 times throughout the movie. And because he's in this rural place, he's like, hold on. Don't stay on the line. I've got to get to higher ground. And he has to get in his truck every time his phone rings and drive all the way to the top of the village to the cemetery to answer his phone calls, where his bosses are just busting his balls about his timeline for the most part on his project. I think his interactions, there's a guy just digging a ditch throughout the film up there, and every time he goes up after a phone call, he just like sits down and has a little conversation with a guy digging a ditch. And I actually find their interactions very funny. Did you guys have any notes about the humor? If you found the film funny at all?
Yeah, I didn't find it funny, but I did. So, like Mitch said, there's a lot of scenes where he gets a call from someone and has to go up to higher ground to take the call. And it was decided either by the director or in the editing booth that they were going to show you the whole trip up the mountain every single time. So I timed it, every single scene, from when he first says hello on his phone to when he first says something on top of the hill. There's 5 separate instances of this. This doesn't capture all the times he talked on the phone. There's others. But there's 5 instances of them, each averaging around 1 minute and 44 seconds. I added them all up, and it's 8 minutes and 19 seconds straight of watching a guy drive up a hill. That's about 7% of the whole movie. And that doesn't count the scenes where he gets out of the car and talks to his bosses, which are basically all identical. So that's sort of funny in a Sisyphusian way as the audience.
I didn't realize it was a comedy at all. I think there were some like funny moments. Like we mentioned he's talking with the person who's digging the ditch up by the cemetery, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I ran into a wall too with my project," and he's like, "I could really use a pickaxe, like a tool to make things go quicker." But the blockage is that this woman isn't dying. And he says the line about like, "Oh yeah, like I could use a pickaxe. So it would only take one swing, but I don't think that would be good." Like that was kind of funny. There was another thing with the person who was staying across the way from where he was staying. I think there's supposed to be some moments of comedy of like, "Oh yeah, like where are all the young kids? Oh, they're out in the fields, but like they're only out in the fields during the harvesting season." Like, and she says that it's pretty dead in winter. They don't do much, and he's like, "Oh, but looks like they get up to other stuff because she was pregnant." That was not that funny, but I could see it trying to be comedic.
Yeah, I think there's almost like a sort of like a silly, almost not quite magical, realistic element to the film that I think the one moment that I think encapsulates sort of both the symbolism within the film but also its humor is the guy who's digging the ditch. Bazad looks down, he's like, "Hey, what's that?" And the guy just like pulls out a femur bone and he like tosses it up to Bazad. And instead of doing any like normal thing with it, he just takes the femur bone and puts it on the dashboard of his car for the rest of the film, which is like very weird and kind of funny to me, at least. But it also is a symbolic moment in the film where he's really here because there's death on the horizon, right? Like every time he's trying to contact the regular world, he's going up to the top of the hill to the cemetery, to where people are laid to rest. And he takes this bone and he carries it with him for the rest of the film in a very kind of disrespectful way.
Yeah.
And so there's this humor, but also there's this symbolism like in the film. The film is ungenerous in these things, where I think something like La Chimera is a very generous symbolic film in how it conveys information to you. This film is not generous. It really wants you to build your own conclusions on it, which I think is interesting. And why I like the movie is that the mix of the humor with the symbolism and it asking you to take your time with it, which I understand might drive people crazy when he's driven up the hill for the 5th time.
Yeah, that scene felt more like I picked up on the symbolism of like this is like of his exploitation. He's picking up somebody's ancestors' like femur and carrying it around with him, not showing it the respect of like this is somebody's body part.
Abbas, this is like some of the things that I think are maybe pretentious but potentially interesting. He talks about making movies that he doesn't give you everything, that in a way that he sees film as a crossword puzzle, that when the viewer participates in the meaning of the film, you make hundreds of films rather than a film, which you could see as pretentious. He seemed kind of pretentious in the interview talking about it. But do you have any thoughts about that like lack of generosity or the patience the film is maybe asking you for that maybe isn't earned or is?
Yeah, I'd say like I get that. I don't want a movie that lays everything on too thick and doesn't leave any room for you to kind of dissect it in your head and question things or chew on it after the fact. And I think that this movie had that. Like, I found myself enjoying thinking about it after having seen it more so than actually watching it. And like, I do think that the patience that it forces you into puts you in this contemplative state of like, I don't know, the joy of life or like the joy of the present versus, you know, getting just so focused on what's next or what the goal is or what the future holds. But I will say that for the first part, I really struggled to stay engaged until more of the like plot stuff started hitting.
I think it's tricky because there are movies out there that ask you to meet them on their own terms and don't do any work for you. Like, I mean, there's a shitload of them. Like fucking Wavelength is a good example. That shit is basically just fucking 40 minutes of staring at a wall. For the purpose of staring at the wall. But like, if the movie's going to give you things, like you have to assess what it's giving you. And I think there are some themes that the movie wants to tackle here. I mean, we're clearly picking up on a lot of them here. It's just the movie doesn't do itself any favors. There's a difference between like withholding information from the audience to make it because it's fun to make them find it. There's a difference between withholding information from the audience and it being fun to find, and withholding information from the audience and it being a slog to find.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Lockheim Air is a good example of the former. I don't know. I'm not sure I'd call that a generous movie. You know, it's a spectrum, right? Like, there's definitely movies out there like fucking The Raid Redemption where the theme is basically written on the front cover of the movie. And it's not even what it's about. You know, it's about kicking people's asses in really cool ways. And then there's shit like this where it's a project that you're involved in, and what the tools the movie gives you are so fucking, they're so dry and like, okay, the movie has characters, it has people like running around and doing things, you know, like characters.
Yeah.
But they don't really, they all suck. They're all fucking, the main character's boring, and he's, at one point he kicks over a turtle, and that's the most significant thing he does, and it pisses me off because it's a horrible thing to do. The child he talks to is a guide, and he's supposed to be the liaison between this modern world of living and this other world, but he is the only way you get information about the main crux of the movie, which is the old woman who's dying. And the information you get happens when the main character sits him down and then they talk about what's going on. None of these things affect the characters or seem to affect the characters, and none of it seems to change the state of their lives or what's happening. I didn't even really get the impression that the main character like learned or changed anything at the end. He took pictures of their funeral procession at the end, and they didn't seem upset by it. So what the fuck was the problem?
I disagree. From my viewing, I do think that they did seem upset from him taking the photos. I think everyone was kind of like looking like, the hell you do, and we're trying to mourn somebody. And then in terms of like character arc, it's like it's a speed bump. It's not a hill. But I feel like the scene where the person who's digging the hole in the cemetery and it collapses in on him, and he's kind of rushing to get people to come together to help him, and he, you know, gives up his car so that people can take this person to the hospital. It is a little more selfless than somebody who's just coming there to exploit them. But it's, I don't know, it wasn't this big change. It feels like once that's resolved, he kind of goes back into his, like, he takes the photo of the funeral procession. He's kind of happy that she died. So
And also, it's not really relevant to anything else because his struggle was never caring for the locals.
Yeah, but I do want to talk about that scene a little bit because I think it is important. As Lucas said, like the guy's digging at the top of the hill, and towards the end of the film, his tunnel or his ditch collapse in on him. Bazad just springs to action, like tries to gather the locals to help get him out and get him a doctor and various things. And what I think is important is this takes place kind of at the peak of his frustration with waiting for something to happen, waiting for someone to die. And then out of nowhere, he's thrust into a life or death situation. And I think what that changes in him is his recognition of like presence and being present. And to me, his attitude changes after this point because not only does he help save the man, but the doctor who helped them, he then goes with the doctor to the hospital and to make sure that the old lady can get medicine. So he's spent this whole time worrying about when is she going to die? But through listening to this older man and being thrust into this situation, he does take some sort of accountability for where he is and decides that he cares more about the person than the story.
I do think that was something where it was like, he's not just like, okay, is she dead? He was like, hey, actually, doctor, how about you come over to her place? She's really sick. And I was like, oh, is this him being like, who cares if she dies? Who cares if I get my story? Like, this is a real human. Let's bring a doctor to her. But then the other part of me was like, is he just trying to confirm that she is going to die? And he wants a medical opinion because all he's been getting is this little kid's stories and, rumors from the village about her state.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a little bit briefly because I don't know how much you guys picked up on because as we kind of talked about, it can be a little hard to decipher what's going on in the film at times. But when it's finally revealed why Behzad is there, that he's a journalist, it's that he's there to document the village funeral ceremony. But something that you might miss is that the reason this is of interest is that the women of this culture, this town, during funeral ceremonies, they scar their faces in grief. And does that information change your perception of Behzad, like why he's there, or of the village itself in any way?
It made me not like Behzad because it felt like it was this salacious thing that he was like, there's my story. There's the shock point. Especially that scene where he's getting the milk from the cellar that's all dark and there's this 16-year-old girl and he's like, what's your name? Tell me your name. You don't want to tell me your name? Let me see your face. Show me your face. And it's just like, dude, that's weird and like too much. And I know he wants his story. That felt exploitative.
I picked up on that during the conversation with the dude in the car.
Yeah, it's kind of the only time it's referenced is that scene.
I don't know. I didn't see much significance in it.
Yeah, I mean, at least if you haven't looked at the synopsis, it is the first time, like just watching the film, that you learn why he's there. And it does sort of bring...
he folds under no pressure.
Yeah, true.
Dude's like, you're here for this. He's like, you got me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does come back to that sort of like exploitive, like exoticizing the rural people for their culture as some kind of like, oh, look at this weird cabinet of curiosities thing that we found here in the country. And I think it relates, though, a little bit to the heart of the film, because at a certain point throughout the film, Behzad has been talking to Farazad, the little boy, And the little boy, like, even though he's his guide, the old woman who's sick is his grandmother. And so he's talking to this kid about his grandmother and calls her an invalid, like, you know, very
Well, he does
dehuman.
too, right?
Yeah, he does too. Very dehumanizing, right? At some point in the film, like, he does decide to ask this child, am I a bad person? Like, he's using like this innocent person to try and gauge if he's like one of the few people in town who knows why he's really there. And I don't know. I just think that relationship is hard, but also kind of interesting from just like an artistic standpoint. Do you have any thoughts about that relationship?
I think that's cool, but I don't think like during that scene when he says that and he's like, "Hey, do you think I'm a bad person?" That kind of came out of nowhere for me because I had no indication up until that point that he was struggling with those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean was sort of what I was trying to get at before with the like the movie gives you tools and it can't use the excuse that like, oh, you have to figure out how to use them. The movie's compelling, you just don't know what you're doing, sort of. It's totally possible that this is a lack of comprehension thing on my part, and if I understood the movie better, I would enjoy it more. But the movie's doing itself no favors in helping me understand it. Like, is Bazad's struggle with his own morality supposed to be a significant part of the movie? Is that supposed to be like, if not, then why was it brought up here? If it was brought up here, what sort of clues do we have to indicate that he was feeling that way? Like, he's supposed to be a character. This is what a character does. This is a character moment. What has his character done to establish this? I'm not asking, like, I get the script isn't like the focal point of this movie. The script is the framework to sort of wander through it's more experiential. But like that's a shortcoming on the what little of the script there is.
And I do feel like his own questioning of his morality is like very weak because like I don't know, you know, he when he's like the most frustrated about this woman not dying and him not getting his story and being able to see this ritual, he gets mad at the kid and he's like, don't bring me bread anymore, and like, don't, you know, come here unless you got any good information. And then to like apologize, he takes the kid out of class while he's in a test. And he's like, come on, this will be quick, come on. And then he's like, I'm apologizing, shake my hand to forgive me. And like, I was proud of the kid because the kid was like, I'm not going to shake your hand. And then later on, you know, he's driving and like Bazad's like, come into the car, and the kid's like, now. And that happens twice. He like comes around, he's like, come back into the car, come on. And the kid's like, now. So
yeah,
proud of the kid.
I think, and I think that does sort of like, Fazad did like, you know, kind of like him and was being really nice and hospitable and stuff. And then like this grown up is so impatient. Like, he doesn't have time for Fazad, like, outside of like the utility he's seeing him in. And like, Fazad's being a very gracious host. He's, you know, showing him around. He's getting him sustenance and anything he asks for. But then like, while he's trying to help, he gets snapped at because, well, one, Bazad is very impatient, but also I think he's starting to feel guilty or something. You know, it's part of the kind of looseness of the narrative. But yeah, I think it kind of runs into some of the undercurrents of this sort of city man who has no time for the simple, the little things, the precious things of this culture, even though, you know, they all have time for him in this place.
They got time and milk.
They got time and milk and
they
strawberries.
Do eventually get him milk.
He does eventually get milk.
And he like goes to the wrong house and they're still willing to give him milk. And he's like, oh, this isn't the house.
Well, yeah, because that also comes up though, because in a little bit of symbolism, he's talking to the guy in the hole and he's like, hey, do you know somewhere I can get some milk? He's like, dude, just knock on any door in the village. They'll give you some milk. And he's like, I'm surrounded by the sea, but I can't get a drink of water. Like he says this very like poetic line. He just he doesn't really understand this way of life.
That's one thing I noticed is that I got that impression from the scene where he's holding the fucking 16-year-old at gunpoint and having her squeeze milk for him.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, Ben.
That scene, he recites a poem to her, and she barely reacts. And it's like, this guy is like well read, and he knows his shit, but he doesn't know. He's got a high intelligence stat, but fucking like -2 wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you, Mitch? Did you do any research on that poem? I know that it was like a famous poem by like a famous, like they say that it's a famous poet Iranian poet who wrote that. Did you do any research on
I
that?
mean, I do know it was kind of the inspiration for the film. Thus, the title of the film is called "The Wind Will Carry Us," which is a line from that poem. The poem is like kind of about love and also this feeling of the fleetingness of human interaction in a cold world, which I think is something that Bazad sort of struggles with. And maybe one of the more salient conversations is when he's on the motorcycle with the doctor and they're just kind of like chopping it up about life. And
chopping it
like,
up on the chopper.
On the chopper, and they're like, he says, "Do you mind if I smoke?" And he's like, "Well, I don't mind, but your body minds. You know, life is precious, and you should take care of yourself." Because he talks a lot of that doctor drops some bars about how like even in a society where you're promised like eternal life after death, that he'll take the sweetness of the present versus an unknown future. And I think that is kind of the thesis of the film in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I do love how he was like, they're talking about like the afterlife, and it's like, oh, like, but the afterlife is so much more beautiful. You'd rather be here in the present. And he's like, yeah, who came back and told you that the afterlife is so beautiful, huh? Like, let's be real there. But I think that was like my biggest takeaway from this movie was this theme or message of like, find beauty in the present, be comfortable with the uncomfortability of like patience and see what's around you. The kids are all like working and trying to provide for their family and trying to be in their studies. And, if something happens to a neighbor across the way, everyone is there to like help, and everyone is very present in like, I don't know, from the metropolitan perspective, yes, this is a very like poor community, but from like their perspective, they're not like complaining about that or trying to find more. They're just trying to eke out the amount of like happiness that they can from where they are at presently. And I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean the entire story is about a guy trying to catch the moment of a woman's death.
Yeah.
Abbas uses everyday life as a way to deconstruct or meditate on life's mysteries. Are there any moments or scenes that jumped out to you as having weight symbolically? I have a few, but I'm curious if there's any outside of the few we've talked about that were kind of stood out symbolically for you.
The fucking femur, when he tosses him up the femur, that's pretty on the nose. It's like, hey, here's the death you're looking for. He's like, great, I'll put this on my dashboard while I look for more death.
I feel like that turtle scene had some sort of symbolism in it, but I don't know what it was. Was it just like frustration leads to taking it out on other people and being a dick and fucking a turtle hater.
That's not symbolism. That's just that's what happened.
Yeah. I don't know. But
Okay, I do think there's symbolism with the turtle. Do you want to hear my theory on the turtle?
yes, I do. Because I'm like, what the fuck? Will you just pause the movie real quick to abuse a turtle and then walk away?
Yeah. So this happens like kind of at the peak of his frustration with what's going on. And he goes to the top of the hill and his bosses are down his throat about deadlines. And there at the top of this hill is this slow, unrelenting, crawling creature. And I think him flipping it over is just sort of emblematic of his frustration with the pace at which he's being, because he told his bosses he was going to be there for a few days. Like, this lady is on death's door. He's going to get the shot. He's going to get the pictures, the story. But he's been there for weeks at this point, and everyone's pissed at him. His coworkers are pissed at him. Fahazad is pissed at him. And this crawling turtle is there just sort of mocking him, and he flips it over.
I see.
Not cool. But that's how I perceive the symbolism of the turtle.
Popcorn Revolver does not endorse flipping turtles over.
Yeah. the turtle does flip
That
itself
makes
over.
sense.
Go turtle.
That doesn't make it okay.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make it okay. But I think it also shows that even despite his interference, the slow, methodical creature carries on like he didn't matter.
I see that. That's fair. I totally see that.
I think there's symbolism in the fact that not only do they take his car to drive the dude who is hurt back to the town. I mean, his car is his means of traveling around. He uses his car for everything. And once they take his car, he's driven back into town on the back of a motorcycle with a doctor. And earlier on in the movie, he's talking to the dude digging a ditch, and he said, "Are you working alone?" He said, "Yeah, I'm working alone. It's easier to work alone." And the main character agrees with him. I think there's a lot of interesting symbolism there, and the fact that in a car, you're closed off from the rest of the world. You're closed off from the setting, which is a character here. You're able to put a barrier up between it and you. And also, you're technically in a room, and you're able to be dishonest. In fact, the only conversation the main character has with anyone other than his coworkers inside of the car, who are all in on the grift, is with the guy who he admits what he's doing to. And he says the line, "When I was a kid and I was told a secret, I almost like sharing it more than I like keeping it." Versus compare that to the end of the movie where he's on the motorcycle. He's in the environment. There's no barrier between him and the rest of the world, and he's hugging onto. It's an intimate, relationship. He's got his arms wrapped around him. He's kissing him on his neck, tongue in his ear.
Oh my god!
For the listeners, that doesn't happen, but it's
that happens.
Yeah, no.
No, that happens. And instead of talking about this grift that they're there for, they talk about just universal truths about living in the present, about what it would be like and what it means to die and that kind of shit. I appreciate that the film is anti-car. That's good.
Oh, Ben, boy, do I have another Kiarostami film for you then.
Did he direct Cars?
Yeah, Cars 1 and 2, surprisingly.
Shit.
No, in Taste of Cherry, the entire movie basically takes place in a car.
Jesus. Well, I mean, that sounds interesting if it weren't for how I know this movie. I know what it's probably like.
For the viewers at home, Taste of Cherry is probably his most famous film. He won the Palme d'Or at Cannes the year it released. It was the film
I
he
thought
made.
you didn't give a shit about that.
I generally don't. I'm just telling them the context that it's his most famous film. I recently watched A Taste of Cherry. I don't like it as much as this one, but I understand. That one's much darker. The film is this guy who's depressed driving around trying to get people, like random like laborers, asking them to bury him after he commits suicide that evening.
Nice.
So the entire film is him like, hey, come on a drive with me. And then he like slowly is like, that hole over there, I'm going to kill myself tonight. Will you just like throw some dirt over me tomorrow morning?
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
it's very depressing. It's very bleak.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, that sounds more up my alley.
The other, oh, go ahead. I didn't let you have space for other symbolism.
I don't know if this is symbolism. I didn't do well in English class, y'all. And I don't know if it's fully formed. But like the idea that pushing against patients or that the pushing against patients can lead to unethical things or ideas. Like this entire time with these phone calls, his manager is like, what are you doing out there? You're taking so long. He's like, what do you want me to do? She isn't dead yet. And it's like, he never is actually going to kill her. Like that's never, a plot point. But it does come up many times of like with the person who's digging the hole in the cemetery being like, oh, a pickaxe could solve this. Or when he's talking to his colleagues and they're like, we want to go home. And he's like, what do you want from me? Like, I can't kill her.
I think one of them talks about using a pillow or something. I forget whether it's on a phone call or one of the colleagues.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, this idea that like pushing against the present and patience and letting things take their natural order leading to bad things. I don't know. Is that symbolism?
I don't know. I think it's a theme. If not
No, it's not.
Yeah,
It's not. Okay.
Well, the thing I brought up wasn't symbolism either, so it's fine, Lucas.
There's some other
American
ones.
education
I'll just throw them out. One of his trips to the cemetery, there's a dung beetle pushing a giant ball of shit and struggling with it. I think it's very emblematic of Behzad. He's rolling this ball of shit up a hill, his car, struggling the whole time.
I did like that too, because I was like, that beetle, where did it come from and where is it going? And it's going to be pushing that shit for a long time. Persistence and patience.
He goes to the cemetery to speak with sort of the living in a way, like the people of the outside world rather than this sort of time bubble there. One of his conversations is with a family member up there that he's actually missing a funeral to be on this shoot, which I think speaks to his priorities and like what he values. Showing that like death, even that of a family member, isn't important to him.
I forgot about that.
I guess I want to wrap it up with a few little ditties, and then if you guys had any questions for me. This batch of films was budgets under $300K. What about this film feels budget, or does it feel like a budget film?
Ooh, and what was the budget?
Yes. So we don't have an official figure for the budget of this film. I will say Kiarostami did finance his films himself mostly, and he was like an independently wealthy like artist, poet, teacher in Tehran. And his previous film, Taste of Cherry, was made for $197K. So kind of time period and when this came out, we can kind of presume a similar-ish budget.
I think it mostly felt like a low budget movie. I don't. My question would be like, how much would they have to have paid to get access to that location? But that's the huge variable in that. Maybe they would have had to pay a lot. Maybe they just would have had to talk to a couple people. Other than that, it's super low budget, and you can tell they use the same several scenes a handful of times. It's not a whole lot of props that you need. There's not a whole lot of shots that would take more than one shot. Like you said, Kiarostami is a very hands-off director, and that you can tell because the performances are very much bland. They don't emphasize anything because they're not being told to emphasize anything. And so I assume they would only need like one take of each shot. And the setting really does most of the talking. I mean, your movie's going to look beautiful if you shoot it in the middle of Iran. That country's fucking gorgeous.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a big budget movie.
I agree. It doesn't feel big budget. I think the thing that like stops me from being like, oh, this is so small budget, or like the small budgetness being very noticeable is the beautiful camera work and the beautiful shots. Like everything had a very natural looking golden filter on it. Again, there was no actual filter. That's just the Iranian countryside, shot at like perfect times and all the wheat like fields. I do think like, yeah, what Ben was saying with like, there weren't a lot of big budget scenes or that looked big budget. The whole collapsing or cave-in scene, the sound did like not match what you saw. Like there's a little bit of dust that kind of comes up, but the sound is like goo 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 goo, and you know that felt low budget in that sense. And the other thing is just using like the villagers as actors. Like that kid, love the kid, but his line delivery was like, "Yes, I need to go to do my exam. Yes, this is where the bread is," and it was.
That's what happens when you take a person who isn't an actor and put them in a room with a director who doesn't do his job.
He was like reading the lines off. But I do think that the Behzad does a good job of acting.
I actually find the local actors like fairly decent for their role. They're like small roles. Like we didn't talk about her, but the lady who runs the cafe in town, her and her husband.
I liked hers.
I thought they were really good. I actually think for a child actor that young, I think Behzad does actually convey a fair bit of emotion. It's maybe feels a bit stilted, but it almost feels like he's shy in the presence of this adult from away more so than the camera, if that makes sense. I don't know. Some kind of like fun notes. We talked about the local casting. They're actually, all the actors are from the next village over, because one of the quirks of this village is like the locals didn't really want to be in the film because they're so busy working the fields and stuff. They're just like getting the locals to like sit down and stay in frame was like they weren't interested in that because they're hardworking, industrious people.
That's cool.
Yeah, but how much capital can they produce for shareholders is my question.
Yeah. Yes, the great question, Ben. Who's really benefiting from all this labor? I watched the behind the scenes documentary that a Japanese documentarian did of the filming of this. It's very bare bones. Like they had some metal stilts you might use to paint a house, where like he would shoot and have a little like sun umbrella and, you know, point the camera and various things. A lot of it was Abbas did some of the stuff. Like that cafe was a house because there isn't an actual cafe in that village. So they like built that out and he spent time to like paint the walls of it. They all went out and took all the trash off the street and stuff for all the shots.
Shit like that, it makes it hard to call the movie pretentious. Because, like, he's clearly trying something. He clearly has an idea. Mm-hmm. It's not just that he's faffing about. He wants to say something. I just don't think he does it well.
He's also was a very experienced director at this point. He'd been doing this stuff for a long time. You know, do you remember like Behzad has like some apples?
Yeah.
He knocks ones off and it sort of like spindles its way around and falls down to Behzad. And he's like, oh, guess that one's for you, buddy. I saw it in the behind the scenes documentary. They spent a whole day getting that apple to roll and do that.
That did pay off.
Abbas was standing there and like telling them like where to put more instant concrete, like so that he kept like rolling apples to see how it like they would roll. so they could get that one shot. And I think that was one of the first days they were shooting, and the locals were like, what the fuck is this movie? But he really wanted that apple shot. I do want to like kind of close talking a little bit maybe about why I think the film's beautiful or important, and just maybe just bounce some things off of you and kind of place into that amateurness. Like, I think the first time I saw this, I wouldn't have known that it was a low budget production just inherently, just because it does feel the craft element of the film outside of the storytelling is very much there. The shots, the compositions, the lighting, the landscape are really, really beautiful. And I think that character is what draws me into the film, the character of rural Iran and this village and these people, these humble people. I think you could view it as like an Orientalist thing, but I just found it a very like sweet and filling, I guess. I found the film to be kind of filling for me when I'm feeling impatient and when I'm feeling like I need to watch something that's got pace, got all this. The film really helps me slow down, appreciate beautiful images.
Yeah, I think like that's a lot of, when I was looking for my unhinged review, a lot of the good and not unhinged reviews were trying to communicate that it helps them be at peace, that like it was something like that this movie fixes their anxiety or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's all I had for you guys. Did you have any other things you wanted to talk about before we go into final thoughts or whatnot?
I do have something. I'm curious, was there some sort of symbolism around this, or was this more of a low budget constraint? What was the deal with the colleagues never being on camera and never being like a thing?
I think what I gathered from that, there's a couple things. Like I said before, I think they're an extension of the main character. They're his hurry up and go personality that he confronts like directly. And also I think in the beginning, the camera doesn't even show you Bazad. It just shows you the car that he's in. And it isn't until they get to the village that you see him. And even then, he's shot completely wide. And it only comes in closer as he gets closer to this child. Because his coworkers are never like willing to integrate or interact with the rest of the village, they're not given any screen time. Screen time is reserved in this movie for people who are willing to, in some way, endure the pace of the region. And they aren't, so they're invisible.
So this was one of my questions, but I pivoted away from it because of how the conversation was going. Because it's not just the coworkers. There's the man in the hole, the actual old lady who's dying. We never see her at all. We only see her son and this sort of movement of the folks are coming in and out of her home to take care of her. And then also the girl who gives Fazad the milk, or not Fazad, but Bahaz the milk, where she's like shrouded in darkness as well. Like he even asked to see her face, and she's just like, "Here's your milk, you weirdo, get out of here."
Yeah, I understand all those other people though, with the sense of like wanting us to feel like interlopers. Like, you know, that's why we don't get to see the sick grandmother. That's why we don't get to see the woman, the 16-year-old who is given milk and most likely has a scarred face. But yeah, I guess I was like, why not then see the rest of the crew? But I guess it is Bezad's perspective, aka Kiarostami's perspective.
I was the reason I initially was going to ask the question, I think is the same reason as you, is I was just genuinely curious. Like, it feels like one of the areas of the crossword puzzle that I have yet to kind of fill in for myself, and something I guess that I've been thinking about since rewatching the movie, trying to kind of parse it a bit. I like Ben's idea for the coworkers though, as like these little gremlins tugging on Azad from the outside world. Hey, when we get on here, boss, why the fuck are we staying in this place?
You should just kill her with a pillow, boss.
Yeah, just take her out with a pillow. Hey.
I have a question. This is more for Mitch, but I'd be interested to hear from Lucas as well.
Fuck me.
For movies like this, you have to meet them on their own terms. You have to put in the work. As Kiarostami says, you have to do the crossword puzzle. Did you feel like you had to put in effort? Did you have to overcome a hurdle to do that? Or was there something about the movie that made you want to do that?
So I had seen the first Kiarostami I watched was the first film in his Coker trilogy, which is called Where is the Friend's House? Very different than this. The whole premise is that there's this little boy who accidentally brought his friend's homework book with him from school. And if if his friend doesn't have it the next morning for school, he's going to get kicked out of class and be expelled. And so he spends the whole movie wandering his town and the next town over, just looking for his friend's house. I had seen this, and I didn't know what to make of it. It was like I'd never seen anything like it before. My curiosity was piqued, and then I watched this, looking for more like it. And I think because I was pre-gamed with Where's the Friend's House, which is also very slow and quiet and doesn't give you much, I was ready to sit in for one of the films that this is one of his like 5 films that people talk about as his masterpieces, so to speak. I think I went in knowing I would need patience after seeing Where is the Friend's House.
I think also, though, for like slow burn movies or movies where you really do have to piece out like what's going on, like La Chimera, for example, watching that at first, it's like at the very beginning, you're like, what's going on? They don't give you a lot of exposition. You're like, who is this person? He got out of jail. Okay, who the hell is Ben Hamina? I do like the puzzly aspect of trying to decipher what is going on. And I do think that the character of Iran, or the rural countryside of Iran, was engaging, but I still definitely struggled to keep engaged, especially after like the 3rd or 4th phone call.
Hello,
Dude.
hello,
Oh my god.
hello. Hold the line. When I picked this movie, I was fully prepared for you guys to just have a bad time with it. I still really wanted to talk about it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
you,
it's
Mitch.
good. It's good to watch things that you might not enjoy, and it broadens your horizon. And like I'm glad to watch something that I might not like.
It makes me sad when I don't like movies like this because it puts my film nerd credentials into fucking question.
I don't
You're not a
think you
real
have-
film nerd.
I don't think you have to like Kiarostami. I think it's very much a taste thing. So, boys, final thoughts, and then we'll do ratings.
Yeah, I struggled with this. I can't believe they chose to show us so much footage of this dude driving up a hill. I mean, I understand like putting the audience trying to get the audience in the mindset of being frustrated with the pace of things, but to like kneecap the pace of your movie to do that I don't think that's a valid way of doing it. It's just maybe I'm wrong. I really like Pathologic, so maybe I'm fucking that's a double standard. But yeah, no, I didn't enjoy this. What it has to offer it's there. There's a lot of really cool themes hiding under the surface, but you're gonna have to do most of the work yourself. And I mean, you could do that with anything. You don't need a mediocre movie to do that. You can do that with a good movie. So yeah, not a big fan of this one.
For me, yeah, I think this movie was hard to get through. It was a boring watch through. But I also, again, have been finding myself thinking about it and trying to decipher the crossword puzzle. That has been more enjoyable to me than the watching of it. And I do think it has some nice like themes to think about and like a good message of being present and finding joy in that. But it was just slow and not much building.
That is all fair. I like this movie. I wouldn't say I love it. I wouldn't even say particularly love Kiarostami, but I think it is that after the fact, thinking about it, I feel that this sort of meditative, almost documentary style film is challenging, and I enjoy what it's giving. I would recommend this maybe as a first Kiarostami. That's why I picked it among his other many films, which are budget friendly. And for us podcasters, you have to fit into the theme of the month, right? This, Taste of Cherry, Where the Friend's House are all very beautiful films. I like what they make my brain do. I'll leave it there.
What that brain do?
What that brain do.
Yeah, what that brain do?
Well, boys, ratings out of 10.
It's like it's either a 3 or a 4 in my book.
Yeah, to be fair about that whole like enjoying thinking about it, I did watch it today, so this could change over time. But yeah, I'd say it's a 4.
I think this is like a 7 out of 10 movie for me. I think it's notable.
I guess that wraps it up. So it brings us to that segment of our podcast where we scour the high seas to find the most ludicrous, loony, luscious,
Loquacious, maybe.
loquacious,
Ooh,
lemon-y, unhinged reviews we can on the internet. And then we share them with you. Anyway, I'll go first. Mine's not great. I couldn't find a lot of good ones for this. Mine is from an unnamed Rotten Tomatoes viewer. Couldn't find their name. They gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars and said probably would have been a lot better if they were speaking French.
Wow, it's really multi-dimensional. Like, is it racist? Is it
yeah.
Is it
Is
saying
that-
something about French cinema that like you like it more because it's French? I don't understand. Like, there's a lot going on here. Lots
It's a
to dig
crossword
into.
puzzle.
Yeah, they're leaving the blank spaces for you to make many reviews instead of just one review.
Interesting.
Kiarostami left that review.
Oh my god.
That reminds me of I used to go to this game shop that the owner left a 3-star review of his own business where he just said, "It's all right, it's all right."
We love the honesty.
Yeah. So mine is from Letterboxd. It's 2 stars, and it comes from user Zayad Hassan. I can't help feel it's so amateurish, like a film student's first project.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
Damn.
So he did pick up on the low budget vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel like it feels a little bit extreme to call
It
it
does.
amateurish.
It's
Like if that
better
was
than
your
a film
first student project, yeah, if you saw that was your first student film, Jesus Christ, bro.
Got a whole village to take over another village. Like this comes from Letterboxd user Ani. They rated it 3.5 stars. You used to call me on my cell phone.
Okay. Polarizing movie. Polarizing. Thanks for joining us on The Wind Will Carry Us on our podcast, which is now called Popcorn Revolver. Join us next week when we finish out this epoch with my choice for a low-budget movie, Slacker by motherfucking Richard Linklater.
That motherfucking Richard Linklater. Thanks, listeners. Kisses.
Good night and good luck.
Mwah.